Referees will show prejudice against Adelia. Distinguished Russian coach Alexander Zhulin thinks that referees will be tough when scoring Adelia Petrosyan's routines at the 2026 Olympics. The Russian figure skater will present her short routine at the Games on February 17, with her free program scheduled for February 19. People have big expectations for Petrosyan's showing at the Olympics. I believe Adilia is in excellent condition. She has to deliver well in the short routine and place within the top 5, then she'll stand a strong chance. Her primary challengers, there's the formidable Sakamoto and American Liu. They're Adelia's two biggest threats. It's tough to predict whether it'll be any less challenging for Petrosyan compared to Gumennik. The Olympics are an anxiety-inducing event. The longer you stay in the village, the more absorbed you get. I believe the coaching staff will speak with Adelia so she can view the Olympics like just another contest. The more straightforward they keep it, treating it like a standard training session, the better off she'll be. I'm hoping everything works out well for Adelia. I don't believe the referee's perspective toward us will shift. They'll remain quite prejudiced. As we've consistently been told, you must perform significantly better, then the referees won't have any choice. But we shouldn't overlook that there are also those competitors I referenced, and they perform absolutely brilliantly. It's not going to be simple for Adelia. More than likely, Petrosyan's second score will be reduced, just like what occurred with Gumennik. We haven't taken part in any events for 4 years, and Adelia is just in her initial warm-up phase. They'll likely withhold points from the frontrunners, the ones the referees recognize. This pattern is clear looking at Petr, who received 6 check marks, and on the second score he fell behind both the Japanese competitor and Malinin, who basically fell apart. But perhaps Petrosyan will surprise them with her performance, Zhulin commented. Gumennik didn't lose to his rivals but to the framework. Petr Gumennik, known for under-rotation issues, was genuinely given some slack. His free program was designed using routine elements and acting, and a notable Russian presence was found within the judging lineup. Anyone thinking differently is, based on Vanya sports reporter, feeling bitter and wronged. It's challenging to debate with someone who thinks Madison Chalk lost the Olympics because of picking incorrect tights and outfit for her free dance. But since my coworker's piece includes claims of twisting facts, I'll address it. One block scoring benefited Gumennik. Referees from Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan boosted him. In the piece, how Gumennik was scored at the Olympics is a shame. I mentioned that referees from Italy and Canada marked Petr more severely than the other competitors in both routines. The first one's total was off by 13.09 points across 2 performances, while the second was off by 10.85. Vanya challenges this point by stating that referees from the former USSR, conversely, were excessively generous toward Petr. And they didn't just offset the prejudice of their 2 peers, but they also pushed Gumennik forward. Since the highest and lowest marks are thrown out when computing the final total, the marks of the Italian and Azerbaijani referees weren't included in Petr's free program, but the marks of the Canadian and Kazakh referees were included. Vanya's skill with numbers and sharp arguments deserves recognition, but I'm concerned he's less informed about scoring systems than he is about selecting costumes for the chalks. There truly is a helpful regulation in figure skating. Extreme marks aren't factored in when establishing the final total. This can offset the actions of a biased referee, but only if there's just one. As soon as there are multiple, one unfavorable or favorable, depending on whose interest they're protecting, mark will still be counted. The key thing is that points are removed for each separate component, not for the whole referee as Kuznetsov suggests. This means that all his math is basically incorrect. In the short routine, referee Yuri Klyushnikov was truly the most supportive of Gumennik. All his marks for elements and components were excluded. The referee from Kazakhstan, whom Vanya blamed for favoritism, scored Gumennik 2.61 points lower than her peers. The pairing of the Canadian and Italian, each pushing their fellow countrymen toward the medal stand, turned out much more successful since there were 2 of them. Sure, Tiziana Morandi's embarrassing 6.75 points for the delivery didn't factor in, but the following 7.25 points actually from a referee from Kazakhstan did. And it's irrelevant whether Klyushnikov scored Gumennik an 8 or a 10, since nobody else on the committee backed Petr. In the free program, the Azerbaijani referee was more restrained. He only awarded higher marks once, and even scored lower than his peers for certain components. Russia has historically been a powerful federation, meaning Gumennik surely got assistance. Another one of Vanya's points sounds rather funny, that the referees have consistently supported the Russians, which means this approach naturally carried over in Milan. It's unfortunate my coworker is ignoring multiple, in his view, insignificant details. The departure of ISU Vice President Alexander Lakernik, who for an extended period guaranteed Russia's impact on the regulations and scoring patterns, the lack of an ISU referee on the committee, they, unlike the competitors, weren't permitted to participate at the Olympics, 4 years of absence, during which all the powerful federations succeeded in advancing the medal rankings and definitely don't wish to surrender their spot in it to Russia, the established framework in figure skating. where a competitor, regardless of how gifted, without a ranking and a solid track record, is naturally compared in scores to an average junior. Gumennik's Russian citizenship, or more accurately, neutral standing, was a drawback, not a benefit, at this Olympics. As it happens, even two nearly flawless performances with some of the toughest difficulty in Milan weren't sufficient to make up for it. Yes, Russia has traditionally been a recipient of a framework in which competitors from leading federations naturally end up in an advantaged spot. I'm confident that if the 4 years of separation hadn't come before the Olympics, Gumennik would have secured gold, and Shadorov, from a less powerful nation in the discipline, would have been the one who lost out. But just because someone like Alexander Samarin got a runner-up ranking at the elite level 8 years back, and Adelina Sotnikova triumphed in Sochi, doesn't mean we shouldn't feel disappointed by how Petr is being scored currently. No, Gumennik didn't miss a medal due to the particular Italian and Canadian competitors, though they did play a major role. He lost because the referees overall didn't anticipate him being on the podium. How frequently do competitors from the initial warm-up with a blank ranking even make it there? Unless, naturally, we're discussing Guillaume Cizeron, who, unlike Petr, succeeded in claiming the Olympics and multiple world championships before his professional pause, and continues training with the most powerful team globally. Gumennik is merely a jumping specialist with extremely long setups to his components and a lacking delivery. Attempting to defend the reduced marks from the referees, Vanya attacks Gumennik's choreography and delivery, pointing to Cha, Kageyama, and Zio Him Fa as references. One of his points wasn't added to the article, but was discussed in an installment of our Clean Tail podcast covering the men's free program. The segments between Fa's mistakes were in a totally different category than the segments between Petr's clean jumps. With complete respect to the Frenchman, who delivered an outstanding short routine, his free program was a disaster. And it wasn't only the mistake, the sole one, incidentally. Fa hardly managed to remain upright before the transition, touched down messily on half his jumps, and dedicated the whole routine simply struggling to make it to the end. Maybe the crew simply prefers routines that emphasize jumping. Otherwise, how can anyone make sense of the reality that Ilya Malenin's poorest showing of his career, with one error after another, got a superior mark in components than Gumennik's Wonjin? Petr strikes me as a more refined version of Evan Lysacek, is another one of Kuznetsov's statements mentioned in the podcast. In terms of ridiculousness, it's somewhere close to Kaliada is a consistent version of Plashenko, and Dikidji is a more expressive version of Fernandez. Lysacek's advantage has never been difficulty. His decision to skip quads in Vancouver 2010 was one of the catalysts for figure skating's fresh emphasis on complexity. But if Vanya thinks Petr is an enhanced Evan, then where are his component scores? Lysacek earned just 0.8 points fewer than Stefan Lambiel in his free program and the identical margin ahead of Patrick Chan. Gumennik, with his second-best total, was behind even those who had botched their routines. Certainly, Petr is nowhere near CHK or Rizzo regarding delivery and routine energy, but is Mikhail Shadorov anywhere close to the latter? He placed 5th in components with a fairly debatable free program, while Gumennik placed 13th. Maybe from the angle of the ISU standards, Petr's marks weren't overly shocking. But there's no value in measuring Gumennik against the benchmark, while allowing the other competitors to compete in a framework that has long concentrated not on the criteria in the regulations, but on totally non-athletic considerations. For whatever reason, Vanya recommends finding comfort in the case of Boyan Jin, who attempted 4 quads in his free program in Pyeongchang but came up short to Fernandez with 2. This is another misrepresentation, which is also entirely unrelated to Gumennik's circumstances. First, the Chinese competitor fell on one of his quads, so he got less for that element, including the deduction, than the Spaniard received for a clean triple. Second, the Jin of 8 years past is incomparable regarding components on the ice surface, not in the results, to what Petr is demonstrating. Third, not a single winner at this Olympics performed in the free program like Fernandez did. And it appears that this time it wasn't those who defended Gumennik who wound up in the aggrieved spot. The United States Figure Skating Federation, USFS, has no intention to challenge the outcomes of the ice dance event at the 2026 Milan Olympics. The American ice dance team Madison Chalk and Evan Bates claimed silver, coming up short to France's Laurence Fournier-Baudry and Guillaume Cizeron. After this, numerous supporters criticized the result of the event. There have been plenty of thoughtful and sometimes emotional conversations about the ice dance event at the Olympics. Following the games, we'll meet with Madison and Evan to talk about how to best support them and the sport's future, stated USFS CEO Matt Farrell. USA Today points out that the 24-hour window for challenging the outcomes after the event has long since passed.